And welcome to Local Edition on Time Warner Cable. I'm Steve Swatt with the Sacramento Report. In the next few minutes, we're going to talk about rethinking California's forest management. My guest is Brian Dahle, who's a member of the State Assembly in the sprawling 1st District in Northern California. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for inviting me down here.
You know, recently, we have seen devastating forest fires in Camarillo, Inland Empire, in your district, Northern California. And I guess that has sort of renewed talk, and you have a bill, legislation that you're backing to do this, renewed talk of rethinking our forest management practices. First of all, what's wrong with our current practices?
Well, what's happened is we've fought fire and put fires out in our forest for the past about 60 years. And what's happened is we've had a fuel loading. We've had more trees grow because fire naturally thinned the forest. Before we were here, lightning would strike, and it would thin the forest through fire. So by stopping fire, we've had an overcrowding, more plants growing, and it's not naturally thinning itself, and we have too much fuel. So when lightning strikes now, well, what happens also is it depletes the water because we have more plants taking the water out of the ground, and it stresses the trees, and then bugs attack the trees. The trees die. Then we have lightning strike, and we have a catastrophic event which emits carbon, damages our watershed, and then also it sterilizes the ground. It gets so hot. So what this bill would attempt to do is actually thin the forest, mechanically thin the forest. We would take that product out and burn it in a biomass plant where we can control the emissions so we're not breathing smoke all day long, and create electricity so it's green energy, and at the same time create jobs and also help the forest where we can actually let natural fire back into the forest without making it a catastrophic event.
You know, intellectually, thinning the forest makes a great deal of sense, but in terms of practice, there's just something emotional about taking out the saws and cutting down trees, isn't it?
Yes, well, there's been, obviously there was a time when, people thought that we were going to cut all the big trees out of the forest and we were going to clear cut it and ruin the forest, and times have changed now, and we need to start managing our forest like we do. I'm a farmer, just like we do on the farm. We need to weed the forest and make it healthy. A growing forest actually grabs carbon out of the air and it holds the carbon and stores it for us. But when we burn it, it emits that carbon. So under the AB 32, the Global Warming Act, good forest management would be a tool to purify our air and our water, and it's carbon sequestration, exactly what this bill would help do.
And you mentioned biomass, which would be one way of reducing our carbon output. And this, obviously, you have to do something with all the wood chips.
Right. We burn the wood chips. We don't have to use coal-fired power plants. Then we have a good renewable source. And the greatest thing about just cleaning up the forest is the ability to be able to recreate in that forest. It's a good home for the critters then that live out there. When you burn it, there is nothing left, and it's really it's tough on our watersheds. When you have an open forest, the snow actually gets to the ground and it doesn't evaporate because when it's laying on the limbs of the trees, the water evaporates. The Sierras create 85% of the water that's created for the state of California. If we just had a power plant every 60 or 70 miles along the Sierras taking that biomass and burning it, it would greatly help our environment.
And now, of course, there's a new Department of Conservation director in the Brown administration who sort of agrees with this approach.
Yes, Mark Nicodem has written a lot of information and studied this as a doctor and did some studies about how the impacts would help by putting it into a biomass power plant.
All right, well, we're out of time, but Brian Dahle, member of the State Assembly from the sprawling 1st District in Northern California, thanks for coming by.
Thank you so much.
And thanks to our viewers also for watching Local Edition on Time Warner Cable. A reminder, you can see this and other interviews on YouTube, also on My Government On Demand. I'm Steve Swatt. Have a great day.